The pilgrims settle down on the snow-covered ground after a hot meal and drift off to sleep. They dream of a far-off land in the Arctic, with festive creatures and an odd appearance from Gus at the North Pole. They wake from their slumber to the smell of burnt food and the sounds of Dobby cleaning dishes. Each of them finds a small gift near their bedroll, wrapped and tied with a festive ribbon. Curious why Dobby's cooking is not up to the usual standards, Nix looks around and finds a box out in the open addressed to Dobby. When Nix opens it, he hears the pots and pans drop as Dobby faints. Inside the box is a miniature set of pots and pans, sized for a brownie like Dobby. Elsa stretches and holds out 2 steins of beer.
I'm so glad I can double fist my beer now.
But your fists don't fit in the tankards,
Says Nix. Cornelius and Cator read books from the tower's library that had been packed away in Ramington's saddlebags. The books discussed the portal the tower housed, the history of 4 corners, geopolitical themes of the past 5 to 10,000 years, and a recurring event shrouded in prophecy. There is always a group of champions during the prophetic event, who fight the battle and save the prime material plane. The details differ from cycle to cycle, but there are always 9 champions during the final battle. There is always a key and a lock, although their physical manifestations differ each time the cycle repeats. Before the final battle, there are always 3 journeys: to the land of the dead, to the lair of the greatest mortal villain, and to the home of the children of last light. This time, the key is the shield of light, which must be taken to the lock by an agent of life who is dead, and an agent of death who is alive. As the prophecy foretells, the lock opens the gateway to madness. Having already discussed this, the pilgrims mutter under their breath the names Bjorn and Lorgar, as Cornelius relays the text of the books. The greatest mortal enemy, this time around, is Lorgar, and the pilgrims must find him at the Temple of Skulls and convince him to help. The book references the Shield of Light many times, but none of the research notes seem to know what it is or where to find it. Although there is a note scrawled in the margins of one of the books that says Azam might know. Cornelius says,
"We need to find the traveling library. There weren't enough books in the research tower. It's scheduled to be in the Kingdom of Frank this time of year."
Before packing up, the pilgrims try to get Dobby to accept his present. Palanfear pretends to die, and Dobby jumps out of nowhere wearing a nurse's uniform and wraps the mercenary in bandages and injects him with a powerful opiate. While Dobby is distracted, Nix grabs the old pots and pans and throws them into the forest, leaving the new ones near the cleaning brush Dobby had been using. Elsa ties the doped-up Palanfear to Ramington's saddle, with his bow unstrung and packed away, and his sword safely tied to the saddlebags. He rolls his head to the side to see Nix and exclaims,
"It's a midget."
Hi.
replies Nix awkwardly. The next day, after hours of travel through the forest, past skeletons of small animals covered in webbing and up to the river. By the river, they see a small hole with water flowing down and red fungus growing on the ceiling just big enough to crawl through. Cator stops them before they go in and gets a bucket of water, splashing it on some of the fungus. Spores puff from the impact, some getting caught in the water and some going up into the air. Nix sees the spores trapped in the water and uses his magic to remove some more fungus while keeping all the spores trapped in water. Together they peer into the hole and realize that they'll never be able to clear it all. Jack then shoves the pair aside and blasts ice into the hole, freezing it solid, as well as freezing the edge of the river to prevent more water from going towards the hole. Nix begins melting a hole through the ice, careful to leave the top frozen so that the fungus doesn't release more spores. Palanfear slides in between the druid's feet and casts Destroy Water on the melt created, but his slide trips Nix just as the fire breaks through to the other side. The pair slip away into darkness, and Cator shouts,
"Turn into a bird!"
as he rushes to see or hear how far they slide or fall. Beyond the ice, the floor of the tunnel is very wet, leaving it plague-free, but making the pilgrims go faster into the abyss. After a few seconds, they no longer feel the rock underneath them, its pressure replaced by the force of wind as they fall downwards with no walls to reach out towards. They fall a long way and land with a sickening thud. Any normal person would have shattered their skull and ribcage in the fall. But aside from some heavy bruising and minor internal bleeding, the pair are unharmed. Dobby volunteers to take care of Ramington, who clearly cannot fit through the hole, and he says he needs to return the books to the tower. Jack and Kator get lowered down on a magical rope, commanded by Dobby and anchored by the weight of the woolly rhino. When everyone is inside, Elsa asks,
All our conventional weapons make the red fungus shoot plague spores. How can we kill it magically?
Palantir notices the room doesn't have any spores in the air, nor on the floor, but the 3 tunnels leading sideways and down do have fungus on their walls. He kneels and prays, and is rewarded with a vision from a few of the war gods. He sees a massive army of lizard men, fully armored and charging with feral speed toward the gates of a castle. Humans line the walls, and a force of cavalry charges into the lizard men, halting their advance. Battle ensues, and the lizard soldiers are slaughtered to a man. The vision shifts lower to the sewers of the same walled city, where a commando unit of goblins assault a gate and continue forth, leaving human blood in their wake.
Yeah. Let's try finding a method of approach to whoever's controlling this plague that doesn't involve us running through the front door,
says Jack. They try to travel through one of the tunnels, but slip and fall, getting bashed side to side as they fall from one rock shelf to the next, until finally landing in a large open room with a carved stone floor laid out in a grid pattern. They regain their footing and chug some health potion and booze, and notice large red puddles surrounding them. Jack gets nervous and shoots one of them with a beam of frost. As if alerted to their presence, the puddles begin to move and enclose around the pilgrims. When they reach closer, pseudopods reach out from the puddles and slap at the adventurers. The thick red liquid rots the clothing and flesh from where it touches, and Elsa barely avoids losing a finger as she punches one, then wipes her hand off on a sleeve, rips it off, and throws the smouldering cloth to the ground. After her injury, Elsa decides to let the puddle have a drink of her alcohol to see if she can dilute it to harmlessness. To everyone's surprise, it works, and the puddle loses its bright red color and its pseudopods dissolve. Palantir unsheathes his dual blades and slashes frantically at the puddle in front of him, looking much like a child splashing their hands in water. After enough of a beating, that puddle too stops moving, and the bits of it that had been splashed on the whole party become inert and no longer cause necrosis on flesh. When everyone is safe, they examine the puddles and find small shards of bone and pieces of decayed flesh, as if these puddles had been victims sacrificed to some evil god. They head into a side tunnel and hear a click under Elsa's feet. Jack immediately encases her in a magical hamster ball, and the rest of the group try to see if she stepped on something dangerous, but they find nothing. They continue more cautiously, but then there is another click, and the floor begins to move. Cornelius jumps forward beyond a crease in the floor, just as where he had been standing lurches upwards. The floor slams into the roof, pottery shatters, and oil pours down from the contact point, slicking the slanted floor. Elsa, unable to control her hamster ball, begins to roll down. Nyx quickly changes into a giant spider and poises himself to catch Elsa, but she shouts,
I'm gonna jump, get out of the way.
Jack casts web, creating a safety net just below where the floor was that he and Kator jump harmlessly into. Palantir, worrying his heavy armor would break the magical webs if he slid into it at speed, maneuvers onto his stomach with his head facing down and dodges the web as he slides past, gaining speed. Everyone sees the wall of spikes that was uncovered by the lowered floor with skeletons and punctured armor from past victims of the trap, yet Palantir makes no attempt to slow down. He slams face first into the wall in between 2 spikes, taking a point on one arm and the opposite leg and nearly breaking his neck in the process. He remains motionless, trying to fool the others into thinking he's dead. On the other side of the trap, Cornelius sees the curved underside of the floor that has now become a wall sealing him off from the others, and he sees a small wooden door near the bottom, which he opens to reveal a ladder and a button. The ladder seems to go upwards to near where the pottery shattering happens. Cornelius looks up and sees oil leaking down the side of the curved stone. He pushes the button and backs away from the ladder and the wall, and shudders as rock grinds against rock to reset the trap. The floor beneath Palantir begins to move upwards, pushing him towards several more spikes before the promise of open air. He tries to get up, but slips and falls closer to the base of the spikes. He falls so close that his legs drop off the rising floor and into the small alcove that houses the sharp iron spikes. Crunched into the claustrophobic area, he feels the hilt of one sword catch on the edge of the floor, and it gets pulled away from him. The blade is caught on the roof above the spikes, and it shatters into pieces. Once the curved stone stops moving, he finds he can actually move a bit backwards, and his feet find an opening that leads to a ladder. In complete darkness, he slides down, crawls sideways, then climbs up a section of ladder before emerging in an area with light and shelves of pottery. He sees the opening in the floor and realizes this is where the floor had impacted the roof. The impact had not shattered stone, in fact. It didn't damage the floor or the ceiling at all, as if it were precisely engineered to stop a few inches away. Just close enough to shatter some clay pots filled with oil, hanging on strings, but not close enough to get at the supply shelves of replacement pots. The others were below him, examining the floor and questioning Cornelius. They found the pivot point, which was 10 feet off center in the curved stone floor, explaining why the section they had all walked on went up instead of down when the floor was unlocked. They recovered the hilt of Palanfear's shattered sword, and Nick seemed on the brink of tears as they barely reacted at all to the seeming death of their mercenary. Even Jack, who had known Palanfear for many years, seemed unconcerned. Palanfear jumped down once he realized Elsa and Kater were glaring at him from below.
Why did you go face first into the spikes? Don't you know how to steer when lying on your back with looking down beyond your feet?
Kator fumed,
Yeah, how stupid are you? What if you had died?
scolded Elsa.
Look at how upset you made Nyx.
Jack said, pointing at the gnome with a frog in his hair, with eyes redder than usual.
I thought it was funny.
Said Palanfear, clearly unremorseful. And so they continued on past a heavy wooden door to a room lined with stone statues depicting 7 4-armed figures adored in robes. The first pair of statues appeared to be full-blooded elves. The next pair seemed mostly elven. The pair after that were difficult to discern, and the lone statue at the end of the hall was clearly a drow.
Why do they have 4 arms?
Murmur some of the pilgrims. At the foot of the drow statue, Palanfear finds a wooden chest and smashes open the lock. Inside is almost empty, save for a single platinum coin. Palanfear looks at it, balks, and steps away. Jack peers into the chest and thinks of how little money they have left since Perrin left, then grabs the coin. He hears the grinding of moving stone, shouts,
Oh shit!
and drops the coin as a stone hand positions itself on one side of his face, and another stone hand smacks him from the other side. Cornelius drops 10 gold pieces into the chest, and Kater drops 9 copper pieces, looking the drow statue in the eyes.
This is all the money I have. Please.
Jack, seemingly bewitched, runs from statue to statue getting smacked, shouting about his soap. Palanfear slashes at the stone drow, dulling his blade and chipping off tiny pieces. Worm hops for the soap as well, but Nyx jiggles a bag of snacks, and it comes back to eat. It swallows the whole bag as Nyx attempts to help the others. Cornelius casts sleep on Jack, stopping him before he can reach a third statue, and Thoraxia drops from the ceiling to be caught in Kater's arms. Seeing a statue reach out toward Jack, and knowing he can't get there in time to help, Kater turns to the drow statue that started it all and casts Hunter's Mark. The drow looks at him while the other statues watch Jack. Then it raises a hand, makes a circle in the air, and conjures a platinum coin. When the coin drops into the chest, the top closes and the lock magically repairs itself. Then the statues return to their slumber. Everyone looks to Worm and sees a glowing gnome-sized chrysalis. Nyx refuses to leave without Worm, so Cornelius and Kator scout ahead. They travel down a staircase to a hallway with torch sconces that light up as they approach each set. At the end of the hallway is an overlook, as if they were on a castle wall or mountain overpass, but with a rock sky. In the distance, they see the outline of a gated city, alive with lights being snowed upon by red flakes. The side of the overlook is a sheer cliff drop that goes beyond sight range, except for a narrow pathway at the wall that leads down to the city. The scouts report back to the rest of the pilgrims, and Elsa says she recognizes the city as Komarach.
The Dark City. It's the Drow capital city, and it is the largest centre for slave trading in the world. It's going to be very dangerous for us to go down there looking like we do.
The chrysalis, which is now extremely bright and emitting a high-pitched ringing sound that grew in volume gradually as the pilgrims talked, now becomes painful to listen to and to look at. Cracks appear on the statues, and the pilgrims scatter to the walls and corners of the room, except Nix, who steps toward it and knocks on the shell. He only gets 2 knocks before he is unable to move, his silhouette engulfed in light. Everyone shields their eyes, and the ringing causes them to lose consciousness. Elsa coughs herself awake. There is stone dust in the air, and the statues are little more than piles of rubble on their pedestals now. The others open their eyes to see the chrysalis in the center of the room has crumbled into a fine white powder.
Nix, what happened to Worm?
I think he changed into something else. I'm not sure. I didn't see it happen with my mom's pet.
I've seen caterpillars do something like that, but it usually takes months and is not so loud and bright.
Says Kator,
Some caterpillar cocoons do glow, though.
adds Jack,
But I've never heard of it happening to a frog.
shouts Elsa.
Worm wasn't entirely a frog. He's always been Fey. Now he should be around here somewhere. Worm! Worm, come out here!
Do you think Worm used to be a worm and then changed into a frog and kept his old name then too?
No, I just called him Worm because he's wiggly.
Says Nix. Elsa lets out a throaty laugh. Then a cat-sized frog with tiny butterfly wings flutters silently towards them from the staircase.
Hello, Nix!
It psychically speaks. Nix gasps.
You can talk now?
Only to you.
Says Worm. Worm's scales slowly change color as he floats and lands softly on Nix's head. The gnome hunches a bit under the weight, but enjoys reuniting with his friend. Nix thinks to Worm,
If you can't speak to the others, can you send them pictures?
Yes, I have limited psychic abilities within 60 feet.
Send Kator butts.
Kaitor's vision clouds over the scene of the party, and he sees giant stone letters spelling B-U-T, almost as if they were on a pane of glass between him and the rest of the world. After a second or two, they fade away and his vision clears.
What did you see?
Shouts Nix excitedly.
I saw big letters spelling B-U-T. Did Worm do that? What else can Worm do now?
No, you were supposed to send him a picture of a butt. Caboose, hiney, derriere, poop deck, buttocks, bottom, this.
Nix puts Worm on the ground, drops his pants to his knees, and sticks his bare buttocks out in an exaggerated manner for all to see. Kator tilts his head to glance between Nix's thighs, but the gnome is too short, and Kator is too tall. He can't see the elusive genitals of the agenda gnome who carries around an oversized stone penis, and has admitted to not having a penis of his own. Without saying anything, Kator begins silently scheming of a way to seduce the gnome, once they are in more hospitable lands. Nix eventually gives up trying to send butts to Kator, and Worm compliments him on his thesaurus-like knowledge. The pilgrims decide now is a good time to venture toward the Dark City, but Palanfear, having taken a face full of the white powder from Worm's cocoon, says he will catch up with them in a few days. Elsa packs up most of the powder into some bags and vials, and Palanfear keeps a bit for himself. After a day of careful travel down the winding pathway, they find a ledge where several dozen other travelers have set up various tents and campfires. No one seems to be violent, so the pilgrims try to mind their own business, setting up their camp and putting protective spells around it. Even so, they agree someone needs to stay on watch, and Kator volunteers to take the first shift. Near the end of Kator's watch, a drunken gnoll stumbles around outside, sniffing the air. He turns and heads directly towards the pilgrims' camp, passing through the invisible barrier. Kator tries to make him turn around, but he brushes past. Kator kicks out the gnoll's knee, but it gets up and resumes walking towards Nix. Kator smacks it on the back of the head and shouts for help.
Where is no meat?
Cornelius hears after casting Comprehend Languages. Elsa and Worm help to fight off the gnoll, but it is not interested in retreat or self-preservation. Thoraxia sends a vision to Jack, gnolls and goblins slitting each other's throats and tossing bodies by the side of the road or off the cliff. Life is cheap down here. Then she bites the gnoll on the neck and kills it. Jack wraps the corpse in a blanket and tosses it by the side of the road. On the next watch, another gnoll sniffs his way through the protective barriers that block vision and sound, again looking for gnome meat. This one is not drunk and tries to flee when it gets attacked. but Jack puts it into a bubble so it can't call for help. A band of gnolls see it and mock it, throwing refuse and weapons at the sphere. One inebriated gnoll decided to shoulder-check the ball, and it flies off the side of the cliff. Jack holds the sphere for as long as he can, but after several bounces, he realizes his efforts are pointless.
Life is cheap.
He mutters under his breath as he releases the sphere. Several hours of darkness later, gnoll grunts and howls break through the quiet. Cornelius hears that they are leaderless, and they are disbanding because they think their leader ran away to avoid paying them. Everyone else on the cliff ledge packs up their various tents and campfires and begins walking down the path toward the dark city. Kator sees a familiar face in the crowd, Haoth, the human warlock that had abandoned the evil thieves in the Frog Temple months ago. He points it out to Jack and the others.
That group there, I think they can be allies. Jack and I have met the warlock before, and he's a good person. He walked away from a paying job in Four Corners because he couldn't handle the evil boss.
Do you want to roll those dice?
Asks Jack.
Not yet, but let's follow them down. Keep them within sight range. If they seem good, then we can try to talk to them inside the city.
Says Kator. Walking through the darkness on the narrow cliffside is nerve-wracking, but they have enough room to be safe from danger. Torches in the distance approach, heading up the path, and the groups ahead of the pilgrims brace against the wall to allow passage. The pilgrims see this and mimic. When the torches get closer, they can see it is drow soldiers holding them, and they have uniform armor and a commander as well. One unarmed drow is speaking with the leader.
It's making our people ill. Why are we doing this?
You have your orders.
Yes, lady, but
She pulls the dagger from his throat and throws the body over the cliff, barely pausing in her stride. When she and her entourage pass by the pilgrims, she stops, then walks up to Elsa and touches up Elsa's makeup.
That's better. But you need to disguise the smell, dwarf.
She looks to Kator and nods.
Cousin.
Kator nods back silently. Her eyes then settle on Jack, and her lips become a wide smile.
Jack, you need to do better than this.
She pauses before continuing.
When you get back to the market, give Zintheris my compliments on the magic work she did for you.
She motions to her guards, and they continue up the path away from the city. The other travelers continue to stare at the pilgrims, jaws agape in awe. An orc grabs Nyx, lifts him up, and licks him.
You taste funny.
I taste delicious.
Do you know who that was?
Says the orc incredulously.
Yes.
Nyx lies.
You are the most full of shit gnome I've ever seen.
I'm horrified. I'm going to cry. But I'm acting mean to fit in with the tough streets around here.
Nyx whispers to him, speaking more loudly to address the group.
That was the High Inquisitor. Try to avoid exposure like that. All these groups you see up and down the cliff, they're all gunning for you now. They all know you've got something that's worth something, and they want to take it from you.
He finishes in a whisper.
Let's pretend to be drug dealers.
Says Elsa.
Nyx can be the alchemist, Jack can be the scholar, and the rest of us can be the enforcer. We'd be hiding in plain sight.
Let's go to the authorities in the city and offer to help spread the Red Plague. I'm writing a dissertation on toxins, and we can pretend to be on their side. If we're serving under the Inquisitor, then the only thing we have to worry about is getting killed by upper management.
Suggests Jack.
Or we can go in like a black op. We can grab random people off the streets, take them to a back room, and electrocute their testicles to get information.
Says Jack as they walk down towards the city gates. As they approach, Jack asks the group.
Are we doing infiltration or black op?
Well, which one is it? I've got 50 gold on this.
Says a guard at the gate who could overhear the conversation for the past several minutes.
Everyone up and down the cliff and down here heard everything you said. We took bets on which one you'd decide.
The pilgrims realize that the guards have already opened the gates and are waving them into the city. Nyx takes off running.
You can't just go without settling the bet. Come on.
Pleads the foremost guard. Jack flips a coin.
Black op.
Yeah, eat shit, Karen.
Shouts the guard, and another one brings out her coin purse. The pilgrims walk through the gates and into the surprisingly well-lit city, considering it has no access to sunlight and is infamous for being the largest slave market on the continent. They see 3 bars in close proximity. The poisoned dagger, knife in the back, and the flensing dagger.
Flensing. Is that similar to flaying? Like taking a person's skin off as one big piece?
asks Kator.
It can be, but usually refers to having the skin and fat taken off in smaller strips,
Says Cornelius. Nix goes into one of the bars and tries to sell the powder from Worm's chrysalis to a halfling. The halfling says,
This cocaine isn't impressive. They have better stuff here.
Jack tests a bit of the powder, then tries to cast a spell, but gets strange, almost opposite results. He tries expeditious retreat, and it makes him fast like normal, but when he tries to change direction, his legs don't always go the way he wants them to, and he ends up running full speed into a rock wall. As he recovers from the impact, a hand from a doorway nearby knocks him out and drags him inside. Kator, worried about the Red Plague snowing down on the city, goes to a tailor and tries to find bandanas for the pilgrims. The effeminate drow tailor offers a special discount, and Kator looks him up and down before agreeing.
I've never had a drow before.
He thinks as the tailor leads him into the back room. To Kator's surprise, the man only wanted a paddling in exchange for free clothing. The ranger ends up leaving with enough bandanas for all the pilgrims, an assortment of different types of manacles, and a dinner date scheduled for tonight at the Spitted Hobbit, which is known to have gladiatorial combat as dinner entertainment. Cornelius, having found the Spitted Hobbit by chance, was working for them for the afternoon in exchange for free food come dinner time. He overheard the manager talk about the gladiators and asked who was scheduled for tonight.
We got a newcomer who's going to face off against one of our veterans. We're headlining it as Galort versus Jack.
Huh, I know a guy named Jack. It must be a common name. Will I be able to see the fight while eating?
Of course, that's why we're making you work for an entire afternoon to pay for one meal.